Hi, welcome to 5 Minutes with Bo Hansen. Today I'm going to talk about this concept which I've been thinking about for a while, and it's essentially around this: how do we compete in sport? When I think about myself as an athlete, a long time ago now, but the reality was I always looked at myself as, how can I compete physically? So I was fortunate that I had some good dimensions in terms of height and arm span, and my physical being was quite good compared to others. But the reality is that there are other ways to compete beyond just physically. And it was when I started to realize that I can't control all of my physical qualities as much as I could control other elements that could help me be better than my previous version of myself. But also the reality is I do want to be better than the people that I compete against. And so here is a checklist, if you like, of 10 different ways that you can actually compete at a higher level. So number one, you can compete on work ethic. And what I mean by work ethic is, can you turn up 10 minutes earlier? When you turn up 10 minutes earlier, what other little bits of technical work, practice elements can you do that can give you a bit of an edge? If you can't turn up earlier, can you stay back later? That's a really simple way to compete. Number two, can you be a better communicator? Can you be a talker? Can you encourage? Can you give direction? Can you be supportive? You know, we know for a fact that coaches like to have their athletes being energetic and being communicative, you know, bringing people together, saying positive things to others, you know, giving some quality instruction, repeating the coach's instructions. Being a communicator takes almost no effort or energy. Can you add value this way? We know that the best coaches and even the team members, that you want to be the type of team member that other team members want to have on their team. You know, being a communicator can absolutely help you. Number three, can you be a leader? And if not a formal leader, can you provide some leadership? Can you be the person that maybe helps uphold a standard? Can you be the type of athlete that helps someone else be a little bit better themselves? You know, leadership can be shown in many, many different ways. You know, and ultimately there are many athletes that when they turn up and participate in sport, they only ever think about themselves, and they provide very little to no leadership whatsoever. We know, again, for a fact that coaches love to have leaders on their teams. And when the reality is that when I'm picking this player or this player, I'm looking at which one. If this one provides more leadership and actually can provide some sense of vision perhaps, or can direct my team in a really positive way, then I'm picking this player every day. Number four, can you be team focused? We know that sport, in many ways, and where I reflect on my own experiences in sport, the reality is it's a pretty selfish thing to do. You are concerned about yourself, your physicality, your mental preparation, the list goes on. You are concerned about yourself. But the more that you can also be concerned about others, can you be the type of athlete that just does all the little things, the little extras that help your team, where you may not necessarily get direction given to you by your coach or by anyone else, but can you see where something needs to be done, and you can be that athlete that gets out there and actually makes it happen? You know, again, can you be supportive of your team members? Can you be willing to, you know, help one of your team members prepare or do a little bit of extra work themselves? You know, can you be the team member that will play this position even though it's not your preference? Again, the reality is that most athletes think mainly about themselves, and it's a difference maker if you can also think about others and be that team-focused player. Number five, can you look after your nutrition? This is something that we spent a lot of time working on as an athlete, especially not just during practice, but especially during Olympic trials, for example, when you would have multiple races in one day. We knew that this was a difference maker. It gave us a massive edge, because if we recovered effectively with our nutrition immediately post-race, we had exactly what we needed to drink. We had what we needed to eat. We managed our breakfast well. We got up at the right time in the morning. These are tiny little things, but they ultimately make a massive difference. Eating the right type of food is not a difficult thing to do, especially in this day and age. There is an enormous amount of advice. There's an enormous amount of research and information that you can access. Eating well is as easy as not eating well. But the reality is that a lot of athletes still tend to neglect this aspect of their preparation and their competitiveness. And so eating well and looking after nutrition and hydration, again, it's a difference maker. So number six, all right, this is all about how you recover. physically, mentally, and psychologically. All right, emotionally, how you actually get yourself ready to compete next time. So knowing how to recover. So I remember back when I was rowing, we used to take ice baths. We used to jump into a sauna. You know, we used to do hot and cold. We used to do things to try and stimulate your central nervous system and zap it back after a tough race. You know, do you get massage? Do you get physio? Do you look after yourself and any little niggling injury that you may have? Do you get that actually sorted out before it becomes a bigger issue? The reality, again, is that a lot of athletes say, well, that's all too hard. And so if you can be better with your recovery, the reality is that it gives you the ability to train harder next time. Every time you miss a practice session or every time you turn up not totally committed to being better today, your opposition may get an advantage on you. Don't let that happen. Number 7. All right, this is up to number 7 now. Can you be mentally tougher? Now, we talk about the whys equation with Athlete Tough. You must know your big reason why. Are you still connected to it? Do you have a really key reason as to why you want to play your sport? Again, why we talk about this so much is that a lot of the teams that we work with, a lot of the athletes that we see have lost touch with their reason why. You know, it's perhaps become something else. Maybe it's somebody else's reason why. Staying in contact with why you do what you do is absolutely critical. The I, again, is do you see yourself as a tough athlete? So are you doing little behaviors on a daily basis that help you identify yourself as being a tough individual? Do you have great strategies? The reality, again, is that this information is out there, but a lot of athletes forget about it when they're in the heat of competition or when they're in a really tough practice. They're trying to get through their pre-season. You know, I remember an example recently where the athletes were not thinking about how to get through their pre-season in the best possible shape and doing everything they possibly could, but instead of counting down the days to when this doesn't have to be done anymore. Well, that's not going to help you. You know, we have to see every act of toughness as being like putting money in the bank. And ultimately, that's going to serve us well throughout the entirety of the season. One feeling that we want to have as an athlete is that when we have done our pre-season, we've done our preparation as best we can, we've shown toughness throughout the entirety of our preparation. It's like going into an exam knowing that you have absolutely done your homework and you are 100% as prepared as you can be. I'll guarantee that most athletes will not feel that way. It's a difference maker. Number 8, technically. There's so many things that you can technically do to improve. When we spoke before about one of the key things, turning up early, staying behind a little bit later, focusing purely on just technically refining yourself. You know, that doesn't take a lot of effort. You know, when your coach asks you to do something and make a technical change, are you the type of athlete that goes, oh, that feels really uncomfortable and different, and therefore you go back to doing what you've always done? Or are you willing to technically live outside your comfort zone for a little bit, knowing that that technical improvement is going to help you biomechanically execute whatever it is that you're doing just a little bit more efficiently? You know, in a sport, for example, like rowing, you know, I vividly remember my coach asking me to do things, move my hand, change my grip, change my elbow position, push differently with my legs, knowing that, hey, that feels really different. But if he's telling me to do it, I'm going to do it because I know that if I can be more efficient, then ultimately it's going to help me go faster in the boat. Tiny little differences biomechanically can give you massive advantages. But again, most athletes don't want to live outside their comfort zone. They just go back to doing what they've always done. And you can tell which athlete this is because you'll hear the coach tell them multiple times to make the same technical change. I always set it as a challenge for myself that if the coach tells you to do something, they will never have to tell you to do it again. So make technical changes. Be biomechanically efficient. Number 9. All right, this is all about self-management. Self-management is like self-awareness. And again, that's the heart of our work. You know, ultimately, do you understand yourself well? Do you know what your strengths are? When you compete and be part of your team, do you contribute with your strengths? If you were asked the question, to what degree do you feel like your team utilizes your strengths? Would you say it's a 10 out of 10? Or maybe not. Do we know what our limitations are? We all have them. Are you constantly exposing yourselves to situations where your limitations are literally being brought to the forefront? Ultimately, your self-management also includes your ability to recharge your batteries. This is a massive, massive issue, what I see in not just college sport, but also professional sport. A lot of athletes turn up on a daily basis already exhausted, not having recovered from what happened the day before or the competition on the weekend. And so knowing how to actually recharge your batteries is a really important thing that's not only going to benefit you as an athlete, but it's also going to help you in the rest of your life. And I really can't tell you how to recharge your batteries. I know doing some work with some teams this year, athletes like to do drawing, some like to meditate, some like to play chess, some like to play music, some like to hang out at the coffee shop with their friends, some just like to have total quiet and their own peace and space and time. Whatever works for you, but you've got to find what works for you. Because every night after you've had a tough practice, after every night you have to recharge your battery so you are ready to go again the next day. And so number 10 is strategy and game plan and tactics. And this is really all about such things as, do you know the scout? Do you understand your opposition? Do you know what their race strategy is going to be? Do you know where they like to position themselves in a race, or how they like to defend, or what their offensive strategies are? Have we spent some time actually identifying these elements? Again, like everything else that I've mentioned here in this video, this stuff doesn't take any sort of physical effort. It's not going to be painful for you to do. But ultimately, it's going to be stuff that can be done that others probably aren't going to be doing to a large degree. And as a result, it gives you a competitive advantage. So my hope for you is that you look at these elements, and maybe you even think of some other ones, and you look at some ways that you could be a little bit better than yourself, but also recognize that you're competing against all these other people. And whilst I don't talk a lot about comparing yourself to others, the reality is that if you can do little things to be a little bit better yourself and know that most people don't do these things, you absolutely give yourself an advantage.